Hey everyone, welcome to Nerdarchy for Nerds by Nerds. I'm Nerdarchist Ted, hanging out here at Gen Con with special guest Grant Ellis. And today we're going to talk about using the Big Bad in Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. Jump down to the description below where you can sign up for Nerdarchy the newsletter, get weekly gaming tips, as well as learn how to game with Nerdarchy. Alright, Grant, you want to, take it over and let people know who you are, where they can find you, and what you got going on?
Sure. Friends out there on the internet, my name is Grant Ellis, and I'm an independent content creator for tabletop role-playing games, primarily Cypher System and 5th edition D&D. I'm a writer for 2C Gaming, and I am on Twitch 40 hours a week, playing lots of different content, lots of different systems on 9 different channels, 7 days a week.
Grant stuff in the description below.
Grant Ellis D&D, Grant Ellis role-playing games, usually I'm the top hit.
Alright, so as we said, we're going to talk about using the Big Bad in your D&D game, or, whatever role-playing game, because using the Big Bad, it should really be, system agnostic.
Mm-hmm.
So, what kind of tips would you want to give? How do you want to guide this video?
One of the ways I like to use a Big Bad, I like to think about how they impact a campaign holistically, kind of the timing when to introduce them to player characters. If you're using kind of filmmaking 3-act structure, usually the characters would get a little bit of experience. We'd introduce them, they'd get a feel for the world, and then they would be introduced to the conflict, meaning the Big Bad. They'd be introduced. I like to think about characters who are really interesting, such as Strahd von Zarovich, a Serac, so many other ones, and how I can use them long-term, not so much one and done, right? I think if you have a legendary character that will really influence a campaign, you don't want them to just show up at the very end, get killed in 3 rounds, and your players feel unsatisfied. So I kind of like to think about them holistically, and so the players can see elements of the Big Bad throughout the campaign. No matter how long it is, it can be a one-shot that's played over 3 hours. It can be a campaign that's played over 3 years, like I did a lot of my 5th edition campaigns. Sometimes I run 2 simultaneously, but it's like, how are we going to build up to Imrith the Blue Dragon and Storm King's Thunder? How are we going to build up to Strahd von Zarovich? Right. So on and so forth.
So going with your 3-act synopsis, many books, movies, are written with this general theme. Now with a game like D&D, you've got levels to build with. With a game like Cypher System, you have different tiers, and you can break those down into those acts if you're looking to do whatever the scope of your campaign is going to be. Now, looking at that concept, would you say Act 1 should be discovery and concept of who your big bad is? Act 2 would be figuring out motives and ongoings, and then Act 3 ends with the final conflict. Is that a good pacing?
And it kind of might depend on the genre. You might want them to be a little more of a mystery in Act 1, but you definitely don't want them so much a mystery that your players are confused, or if you're streaming on Twitch, your audience is confused. The worst thing is when you have 1,000 viewers that don't know the story and say, hey, I really liked listening to you guys talking. I have no idea what happened in that game. That's not a good thing. If viewers are confused, your players are going to be confused. So you don't have to be exactly on the nose. You just have to make sure that the players have an understanding. I ran Storm King's Thunder start to finish. My players didn't have an idea of what the actual storyline was till the penultimate session. Because it's a sandbox, they can play the whole thing out of order, and they're just like, huh, there's a dragon in this campaign? Let's go kill it.
Well, that can be problematic. For you guys out there who happen to watch some of our live plays, you know that in my game I've got a demon lord that I've been using since the very beginning. The campaign is actually reaching its culmination point before the end of 2018, and I'm really looking forward to it. So for me, the Big Bad conversation is something that I'm enjoying talking about, because I've got that, I'm in the stages of planning. I'm only a few months away from that final encounter, that campaign ending. You know, so you made mention before we went into, you know, this video that there's a bunch of different elements of using the big bad and how you should get into it. So where would you start?
I would start primarily with figuring out what is the end state. If this big bad had everything go their way and their plan came off, what's their end goal? Is it total annihilation of the planet? Is it enslavement of the people? Do they want to take over an economic market? Something like the big bad of the pig farmer town, right? You know, he's like, hey, and I have the most prize-winning pigs, and I cheated to win all those competitions. I'm just kidding. But what I would do is I would think about, the schemes that they are going to hatch. You think Megatron and Transformers. Megatron tried a lot of different things over many different seasons of Transformers. Cobra Commander and G.I. Joe. You think of these 1980s serialized, episodic children's cartoons, and how you have these episodes, and the big bads have plans almost every episode.
And almost every single one, the plans are thwarted by the good guys.
They're thwarted unless it's a multi-part where you build that, or it's the movie and they end up killing Optimus Prime and you are traumatized for the rest of your life. That goes without saying. Then I like to think about the possible lieutenants they would have. You know, who are the seconds in command? Who can who can come off as an absolute badass and scare the characters, and then they realize there's a next level above that. There is someone that absolute badass is totally afraid of, and that is the true primeval of the campaign.
So going on that conversation about lieutenants, I think one of the important things to do is to introduce a credible threat to the players and be able to say, all right, you have this here, and either it's able to get away so that you have the ability to use it again, or the players are scared of it and have to flee, so that it gives them something of, oh, we're eventually going to work up to the point that we can take him out. Well, then you can introduce, like, okay, well, there's this next tier above.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and there needs to be an opportunity for the players to use their agency, but not come off looking like cowards when they realize they're in over their heads. In Dungeons & Dragons, I experienced it with the Princes of the Apocalypse campaign, which is many dungeons, many different delves, many different layers in kind of this circular fashion. If you follow the storyline in a linear path, all the player characters get their asses handed to them when they're about 2nd or 3rd level by a CR5 monk. Dead character, dead character, I'm running. And it's like, maybe I can retrieve the bodies, maybe I'll find them strung up, and posted in the town square, or maybe I'll receive a warning. But just kind of learning that maybe there is a greater threat than bandits on the road, and maybe we need to do more to stratify ourselves. You know, it's kind of a fancy way of saying, I need to level up in the campaign. I need to train. I need to get better. I need to prepare myself for an impossible mission. So
that, to me, that's always one of the hardships of role-playing, is to try to not role play the mechanics. So how do you figure out, like, oh, well, I need to be stronger, I need to be faster, I need to be better, without just like, well, I'm just going to sit here and train. Training takes forever. You need to go out and do. So like those things.
Big bad. Here's a good thing. You need that magic emblem, right? You need something like when Orcus was dead and he was Tenebrous in the Dead Gods adventure path. He knew the spell Last Word, which will kill a god. Maybe the players need something to overcome this. They need a thing. They need to put together pieces of a puzzle. And it's not just leveling up. You need to have a design if the characters aren't into leveling, or you're playing a system with no leveling. How do you beat this guy? What's the game plan you're going to put together?
Well, when levels aren't a part of it, to me, then I move on to, we need to gather information. Can we find a weakness? Can we find a way to lure him out of his lair, or her, as the case may be? Having ways that you have the ability to, garner in-game advantages that are not mechanically applicable, but it makes it seem like, well, I'm going to go on a quest, I'm going to go do a thing, and in doing so, I feel like I'm better prepared to get into that encounter.
I'm pushing my button, I've fetched and I've run through this path. I also kind of like to encourage players to be creative and say, inhabit the mind of your character, be creative. And I always preface the campaign with, you're going to find problems, there's 100 ways to solve them. Come up with your way you're going to solve it, which just kind of encourages them to sometimes find their own solutions. I was playing a Powered by the Apocalypse game. I was designing puzzles that really had no solution. I was like, whoever comes up with the coolest answer and comes up with the coolest way to solve this problem, I'm going to say, yes, that's it. It might be like, well, I wonder if we say the magic word backwards, if it'll teleport us back to our base. Since we said it forwards to get here, sure, why not, right? We've got 5 minutes left to play in the session.
I know this isn't directly related to what we were talking about, but a lot of GMs really love the rule of cool. So like, if somebody comes up with a good idea in your game, it's really great to just, yeah, that works. Totally go with it.
And good segue into the big bad too. I think it's important in order to embrace the rule of cool and to encourage your characters to be creative. If you're running multiple campaigns, or you're like members of your show or myself that have played role-playing games for a long time, try to show the player something new, or take an old stereotype and turn it on its head. There's comfort in stereotypes, but show them something they haven't seen before. When designing a big bad, I like to just look up cool pictures of fantasy art that's not even in the game system and just say, that's the big bad. This guy who has no stats, no abilities, what can we make this into? How can I balance this? What level characters would run into this guy, right?
Well, truth be told, the big bad in my game, like, I wasn't even certain whether the campaign was going to end with him. I waited until the players informed me, or the characters in the game informed me through play that they need to go take him out.
Yes.
I had left it as like, okay, well, maybe they'll deal with the cult and they'll move on and the plot will change to something else. But they're like, no, this guy's been a thorn in our side for all these levels. We're going to go to the hells. We're going to take him out. Great. They informed me that that's what they want to do. Well, as the game moved on, I'm a minis guy. I start looking through my stuff. I'm like, they're going to get there eventually. What do I use? And looking online, I found a great piece. I'm like, I have that mini. I'm going to use that. I just need a good paint job on it.
Yeah.
So I got that all taken care of. I've got the boss hidden away in my house, and the players have no idea what it's going to look like. It'll be great.
Yeah, it was one of those things when I ran Storm Kings. I bought the Gargantuan Blue Dragon mini. I got it imported from England. Bought it used on eBay, so it was like $30 instead of $300.
Ugh.
Yeah, but I had to keep that thing hidden. And we're next to the last section. They're like, yeah, but it's an ancient dragon. We'll just drop it on the table as I start talking about point as it is. They're hearing the story, and they're like, he has a mini. We're probably going to have to fight that thing. And then they spent the next 2 weeks putting their mind around it. I also think it's important with the big bad to think about the consequences of leaving the big bad unchecked. Because it's easy for the players to just say, to hell with this, we're leaving. This is too tough. Get some real heroes in here. We can't handle it. It's like, you are the ones, these are the consequences. If you leave him unchecked, and also make the characters invested in those consequences. Like, have the big bad make personal attacks on either their family, their homeland, their military unit, their personal honor, and get the players invested.
I had, in a recent game, the players are like, I want to do X. And while they were doing that, they uncovered information that hordes were actually moving on to attack multiple of the characters' homelands at the same time. So it's like they had to choose, well, do they go continue with their plan? Do they notify their homeland some way, shape, or form? Do they try and save one, not the other? So it was a pretty interesting flow of events. And they informed both and decided to, all right, we got to continue with our plan. They got this.
Excellent. And I think about the adventures I'm running at Gen Con, and the way it's sort of handled is the big bad has his goals, but the way you win the adventure is not really through combat. It's through picking up on the context clues that there's an object in this game, and if you realize it's whoever has control of this object, there's a weapon of mass destruction, which is an angel from a far-off plane. It's a neutral deity, an angel of war. Whoever wears the bronze crown will command the angel, and the angel will destroy anything set in front of it. So they sort of get into, fisticuffs with the big bad, then realize, wait, what if we just take his crown off his head, put it on us? Oh, we can command the angel to fight him and his troops. Then they steal it back, and they're kind of playing hot potato. I think that's something that's really fun to play in a one-shot or introduce players to, and they feel so clever when they figure it out.
That's another way that you can use the big bad, is you can put something in there that is technically undefeatable. You can have something that it's like, look, the goal of the game is not to fight and defeat the thing, because you are never going to have the power to do so. So the goal of the game could be, awaken or unlock some other power that's going to do it for you. This gets to, this gets some people that they don't like. It's like, I want to be the hero. I want to be to do the thing. But they don't realize that you got this other thing that you saved the world without having to do the fighting. Because let's face it, not every game is seriously into the combat angle of role-playing games. So you can say, all right, well, I want to focus on the role-playing. I want to focus on the exploration, so you can have those great, fantastic fights without having to sit there and roll the dice for hours.
Yeah, some of the best conflicts against the big bad I've seen have been handled in on the floor political debates, where it's more of a battle of wills and philosophies, using in-game mechanics for conflict resolution. There's a number of systems, particularly in the independent game world, that have developed sophisticated conversational key phrases, and you can sort of barter with each other and negotiate a resolution, which is a great way to do it without dice, rather than just saying, okay, this is the big political debate, make your persuasion roll. It's just sort of like, we're going to have a conversation. And there's a few phrases that when we use them in the conversation, guys, I love to use that with a big bad, because not every big bad carries a giant sword. Not every big bad is the god of thunder or the demon from the 68th level of the abyss. Some of them are just shrewd, calculating intellectuals that you will never see. And when you do, they may be untouchable physically.
So, all right, I think we've covered quite a lot of content here. Do you want to do a sum up? Give it all streamlined here.
Sure. So when you're using your big bad, consider your concept. Be it whether it's weather, whether it's a unstoppable monster, whether it's the leader of an army. Come up with your core concept. Think about their schemes and plots that they can hatch. Think about lieutenants they can use. And think about ways to make the players invested in the consequences that can occur as a result of the big bad's actions. In turn, also understand that not every big bad will be combat-based. Some big bads will be more of an intellectual challenge in a puzzle to solve. But always also make sure that the game is winnable and solvable in some way, shape, or form based on your group and the kind of game that you all like to play at the table, yourself included, as well as the people that you play with.
All right, Grant, thank you so much, for coming on here, and talking with us. There's been a lot of awesome Gen Con people that we've talked to. Do you want to share, one last thing about, what it is that you're working on, any upcoming projects?
Sure. Two projects that I'm working on are the TPK Bestiary and the TPK Handbook 2 from 2C Gaming. Being the bad boy of Dungeons & Dragons, they recruited me to put together encounters that will kill your party, really just challenge them, and design monster groups, custom-made monsters with the lore, tactics, and abilities to really test and challenge your party. We have Kickstarters up right now, so check out 2C Gaming on Kickstarter and please support and back if it's something you're into. Also, I'm on a variety of channels right now. The best way to find out what I'm on is to go on my Twitter at WisePapaGrant and check my schedule, which is always posted on my header image. And those are really what I'd like to plug.
Thank you. So you guys out there, if you have any awesome stories about dealing with the big bad, or you have tips that we didn't talk about, down in the comments below, you can continue that story while you're down there. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And until next time, stay dirty.